for putting this all together. This is an amazing vision. I remember when he started the first year, and we just kind of crossed paths over the word legacy. That was all it took, was the word legacy, and from there we're now what? This is the third year we're in this.
Yeah, third year.
So it's amazing what happens when you become intentional about how you utilize social media and the resources that you have at your fingertips. With that said, I want to just go ahead and kick off with my panel. I'm going to do two things. I'm going to give you an opportunity to introduce yourselves. First and foremost, my name is Daniel Williams, Director of the Business Development for Legacy Consulting Solutions. There goes that word again. And I want to kind of get started with kicking off all of the panelists. But as you're introducing yourself, I also want you to answer a very simple question, which is, what does generational wealth mean to you? So the way that my screen is set up, I'm going to start with Miss Michelle.
Thank you so much. I am so happy to be here. I am Michelle Talbert. I'm a former corporate attorney. I try not to practice. I am a relationship marketing strategist and the founder of Her Power Space, which is the first Black woman-owned co-working space in Broward County. We are woman forward, men welcoming. And I think one of the best definitions I've ever heard about legacy and thinking about generational wealth is that, and it's from Hamilton, is that planting seeds for a garden you will never see. It's being willing to make that sacrifice, put something in the ground, fertilize it, and you may never reap the benefits of it, but you know that someone will, and being willing to do that.
Wow, that's a powerful statement. I don't have anything to take notes on, but I'm going to remember that one. Miss Kimyana, you are up next.
There, I am Kimyana Jones Bay, and I'm the owner of Perfect Salon Suites and other various companies, but that's my main company. It is real estate focused, with the focus in the beauty industry. So we connect beauty professionals to rental space. So I am happy to be here and discussing this panel. I truthfully believe in legacy, and I think that generational wealth means having something tangible, a tangible asset in the form of a business, land, real estate, to be able to pass down, but something sustainable. For me, it's one thing, our forefathers owned houses, but something that's sustainable that can actually take care of the generations to come. So that's my definition of generational wealth.
Awesome. I don't want to mess your first name up. So Miss Wilkerson, please, we didn't get a chance to do this prior, so the floor is yours.
All right, greetings, everyone. Thank you for having me here. So my name is Ola G. Day Wilkerson. I am the founder and CEO of Hair Goddess Boutique and Wealth Icon University. I am the Wealth Icon Queen. And in the terms when you talk about generational wealth, that is really what I do for my community. Generational wealth for me starts with number one, mindset. You have to transform your mind, especially as being an African American, because of the trauma that we were born into when it comes to the United States. So that's breaking generational curses in order to create and build. And you got to do that through your community, through building a tribe, of like-minded individuals. Thank you.
Wow, that's powerful. So, all of the gentlemen are also gentlemen that I look up to. These are definitely pillars in our community. I'm going to actually open the floor to our brand new father, Mr. Curtis Washington, and let you kind of, because I know right now legacy and generational wealth is like at the forefront of your mind not all of a sudden, but definitely at the forefront of your mind as you're watching the development and the growth of your family. So, please, floor is yours.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. My name is Curtis Washington, better known as Double Up. I am the founder of Vision and Grind, which is a fitness-based business. I am a fitness entrepreneur and VIP fitness coach. And I'm also a brand new father. You might be able to hear my son in the background. It's probably the biggest accomplishment of my life. And that's what legacy and especially generational wealth means to me, is to make sure that he never has to want or need for anything, that he is entering this world and enters the world outside of my home with a firm foundation, both financially as well as a foundation of knowledge of how to maneuver in this world, and that he's able to do the same for his offspring. And this continues and continues, and he wears the Washington last name well.
Wow. That's a powerful statement right there and a powerful motivation.
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
W.J. Daggins, man. We met a couple of months back, just randomly. So it's always great to, continue to cross paths,
Exactly.
with people and talk to me, man. Introduce yourself, let the people know who you are, what you represent, and talk to me a little bit about generational wealth.
My name is W.J. Daggins. I'm a life coach, author, and executive director of a nonprofit named Here to Inspire Community Foundation in downtown Fort Lauderdale. We do free counseling, coaching, and therapy, which is generally based around legacy as well. But it's not just financial, but just to make sure we have strong community and strong families. So generational wealth to me means being able to have the evidence that you were there and effective when you're no longer there. I am a father to 7 kids, and I am one of 8 kids from my parents. And my father having a high school education, he now has 3 properties in 2 states, and being able to watch him, even though he didn't have the example of generational wealth passed down to him, he is very strong-minded regarding being able to leave it behind to us. And I've been able to see it, and even on a small budget, the fact that he's been able to accomplish it. So that's what it means to me. It doesn't matter where you are in life. I believe that you can make an impact regarding the future that you leave.
That's a powerful statement, brother. Thank you so
That's it.
much for sharing that. And
Awesome.
I almost feel like this is kind of pointless, but the man who almost needs no introduction, Mr. Dejan Talks, floor is yours, brother. You're on mute.
Thank you again for allowing me this opportunity, you and Mr. Glenn. A little bit for people that don't know me, as you may say, I am the proud owner of Blue Light Consulting Services, which targets small business startups to help you leverage concepts like business model canvas, design thinking, to help you just think a little bit outside the box to grow from singular to plural. That's really our niche, is duplicating the effort without duplicating the process without duplicating the effort. We try to give people that mindset so they can help grow their businesses. Apart from that, I am definitely a motivational speaker and life coach. I'm big on prison reform advocacy. I was incarcerated at one point in my life, so that's actually one of my niches. And I have a nonprofit called the Dejan Talks to the Homeless Foundation, because during my teen years, I was homeless. So everything that I lacked when I was younger, I try to become a solution to those as I get a little bit older. I just try to figure out how, with the question that Daniel's always asks, what would you tell your 16-year-old self? And I think that's a very good question that we should always try to answer. To answer your current question about financial legacy, I want to piggyback off of Michelle and Mr. Wiggins' answers. One is learning how to plant a seed that will reap a harvest that we may not eat from that tree. I believe that's a very good sentiment and a view. And in business, we always ask this question: why? Right? What is your why? That is the main question. Why is, like Mr. Wiggins said, I came to this country on a boat. I don't know what financial legacy looked like, right? I came here with whatever was on my back, I had to build from that, with nothing. So it is a learning curve for me. It's a learning what not to do every single day and learning what to do from those resources that currently exist, like this panel today. So I pray that I can learn as much as I can from you guys, that I can plant some more seeds that my kids can eat from years and years to come. Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. So let's one is pretty there are studies that show that by the year 2054, the average net wealth of a black household will be 0. And I really want to start with you, Olajide. I got it.
Olajide, yes, sir.
Olajide. Um, what is it that we're doing wrong? And what is one thing that you could recommend to fix it?
When it comes to, African culture, knowing about my ancestors, knowing about lineage, my father, my own property, have that allow.
Okay, I believe we lost her. So we'll go ahead and continue the discussion going,
Can you
and
hear
keep it
me?
moving. Yes, I can hear you now. Sorry.
Okay, all right, thank you. I think my connection is a little bad. My apologies.
No worries. We're here.
But yes, but seeing entrepreneurship, seeing, can you hear me?
You might want to try using Wi-Fi, if anything, so we can probably move on to the next person and come back to you right after.
Well,
Okay.
so we'll actually go with Mr. W.J. Daggins. You're up. Same question. You're on mute.
Sorry about that. No, I was stating, can you repeat the latter part? I was getting lost in the freezing.
I apologize.
Gotcha, no problem.
Black projected to be net wealth projected to be zero. What do you think we're doing wrong? And one concrete step you think we can do or use to start reversing that trend?
I think we have a bad perspective overall regarding the future. There's a statement, you only live once, so while out, and I honestly as well don't think that we see money as a tool or as useful as it is. I often tell people, $1,000 is only 10 hundredths, and it can spend so fast, just like $10. So regarding wealth, we use it so frivolously, and we don't value the ability to have even small amounts that will add up to big amounts. So at the same time, it's just our perspective. I can't specifically put my hand on it why we look at it that way, but my thought earlier today was it's almost it's like cultural to like bling, like back in the days from Tupac and Biggie, like riding in the BMW and the drop top. It's just like, it's we're into brands, we're into being seen, and I think that is a big part of the problem. But one thing that I could say that will help realign our focus regarding our own families is to try to realign our perspective and make a plan and stick to it regarding like our projections, because as stated earlier, my dad, he wasn't on a minimum wage job, but he had a high school education. But the fact that he was able to pace himself and to go towards those goals, buy a property which had no house on it, and then sell it, and then use that money to do this, and then went to the army and got 20,000 and did that. We have to plan. We can't just be living. We can't just wing it. So putting a plan together and just trying to renew our perspective regarding money.
Wow, that's a really great answer. Michelle, I'd love to get your perspective on this as a, what do you call yourself, a recovering corporate attorney?
A recovering corporate attorney, yeah. So, I mean, if I had any sense, I would have stayed at my six-figure guaranteed quote unquote job, right? For me, I think one of the things that we're doing wrong is that we're having a disconnect in the communication between those of us who know better when we talk to those of us who we hope would do better. And what I mean by that is that I see a lot of memes that are like, oh, this is Jay-Z when he had all the bling and didn't have any money. And now he doesn't wear any jewelry hardly, or his jewelry is an investment. And I think that a lot of times we end up shutting down communication before communication can even begin, because those of us who are saying, well, you know what, YOLO, right? You're talking to me, you're judging me, you don't know my struggle, you don't know what I've been through. So it's very difficult to even begin to open the freeway between us for education and communication. So to me, that's one of the biggest barriers between us, right? And then we can begin to talk about how do we educate? How do we move forward? Do you even really want to change? Have we ever asked? Aren't there some people who just don't care about the next generation, right? So let's work with the folks who do, but not judge them because they're not where we are yet. So that's kind of one of the issues I have. And I'm a relationship person. So to me, it's always going to be about how are we connecting so that we can have communication that's positive and moves us forward.
That's great, sir. Wisdom and you'll share with people. Um, yeah,
You're breaking up, Daniel.
uh, same question.
Well, Michelle, quick question to what you said a few minutes ago. Are you still there, Michelle?
I'm here.
Okay. You were talking more about the whole stereotype and the whole culture. Now, if we took a look at what they call the other oppressed group, which is a Jewish generation, the Jewish people, they went through something, I don't want to say exact same thing, but somewhat similar to where we came from. But yet they adopted a different system of taking care of generational thoughts, of investments and saving for themselves. What do you think was a major difference between them versus us? And where do we shift the different paradigm of they took a different route where we took exit 45 instead of exit 200?
Well, two things. One, I think that Black people are not a monolith. I think, probably have as many opinions on this screen as there are people about certain topics. And we have to come to grips with that. We're not always going to be in lockstep because we don't always agree on everything. So we can start there. But the other piece of not being a monolith is that to be Jewish is both cultural and or religious.
Yes.
Right? So they had certain monolithic traits that were already running through their communities, whether it's through going to temple together and having that message of economic development and collaboration being put through there. So even if culturally or religiously you're not Jewish, one way or the other, you'll get the message.
Yes.
We don't have that, right? And I'm not saying we should, but I think we need to recognize that because we're comparing apples to oranges. We are just not all lockstep at this point, right? So identify who is, like the folks who are going to temple, and have that conversation, and let's all move forward. And then hopefully that takes root and spreads further. So that would be, my answer to that question.
Awesome. Anyone want to chime in on this topic, on this segment right here? Chris, anyone? Curtis, anyone?
Yeah. I'll actually touch on a little bit of that from my perspective here. So, looking at we'll call it the Black culture, it's so diverse within itself. We start to look at, as Michelle mentioned on this phone, there's many different shades on this call. And I know for a fact that just for lack of a better term, like my Black is a little bit different than yours and yours and yours. We got Jamaican, we got Haitian, all types of people on this call. So I think there's such even a smaller kind of division within these cultures that is really hard to make this overall connection between African American and say, like, we all can come together and do this. It's not impossible, right? But then you look at some of the Jewish communities and their communities there as a whole. And I think even Michelle alluded to that as well, is that these are fundamentals within their community, is economic prosperity, and they have access to the information and they don't withhold, and they share it amongst each other. They empower each other to do so. And, in our community, we're I don't think there's a problem. Like, we're just getting there. we're starting to understand, and some of these things that were right in front of our face are now being unveiled to us. And it's like, okay, own assets, pass these things. You know, I had a client, if you guys don't know, I work in Boca Raton, which is very well to do, and a lot of Jewish people out there. And I had a client very well off, and he just mentioned it in passing. And he's like, you know, in our family, like, just like every other family, we all own a family business. And okay, that's not my family, Rock, but cool, I'm listening. And he's like, yeah, so what we do is, you know, we either own a restaurant or a hotel or something. We put everybody's name on it so that everybody has access to that capital. Everybody is building their own business credit. Everybody has a source of income, if nothing else. And this is just common sense for them. And like I said, for us, we're all trying to build forward. And, you know, a lot of the generational wealth and a lot of the curses we're trying to break just comes with knowledge, and we have to do it forward versus being fed the information, if that makes sense.
Yes.
If I may add in, Glenn.
Go ahead.
Michelle, first of all, I think you did a phenomenal job of breaking down the separation between the two different classes of how, although we have that similarity in pain, but the social class and the culture class is completely different. So as Curtis just alluded to, yeah, we have that background of being ridiculed or being put on through certain trials and tribulations. But the difference is when we were being ripped, we were not all dropped in one location, right? And I think Curtis did a good job of alluding to that. We were dropped in multiple locations. And not just that, what we have to understand with the Jewish culture is they never lost their education or their line of communication to their home. They never lost that. They never lost their line of communication back to their home. If they wanted to go back home and get back their finances, they had that opportunity, and they could come here as well. Unfortunately for us in the Black community, no matter what Black shade of Black or what ethnicity of Black you are, we didn't have that opportunity because we don't even know what home is. We know a continent. We don't even know what family look like, right? My granddaddy could have probably been the king and probably the richest one of all. Your grandmama was probably the richest of all. But we don't know how to get back to that financial source, right? So we don't know how to get back to that lineage to get that education and financial. I always say, growing up on the streets of Miami, moving from Haiti to here, growing up on the streets of Miami, I only saw 3 levels of education. So to add on to what everybody else said is, to me, it's exposure. And the 3 levels of education that I always saw, you were the mechanic, you were the pimp, or you were the drug dealer, right? If you weren't the mechanic, the pimp, or the drug dealer on my block, you wasn't making no money. Nobody dressed like this unless you was a pimp, right? Nobody was in suits and ties. I didn't see doctors. Those were not exposed to me. But notice what you always see in the community, what we just expressed, everybody. You see the hospitals, Mount Zion everywhere. You see this. You see the aspiration. Everywhere you go, you see the landmark. But we don't have landmarks to really look at, because the only thing we established here was the blood that was shed on our back to build it, but we got no credit for it. Okay. We got no credit for it. So it's hard to build from that zero from my perspective. But the conversation, like Michelle was saying, is we have to be receptive to the conversation without being offended. And I think that's a very good start.
That's powerful.
And
Kemiana, I see you want to hop in.
Yeah, Kemiana wants to jump in. Go ahead,
Kemiana. Absolutely. I think the fact that we can actually identify them as Jewish, that in itself is a heritage. Who are we? Where I'm from. You call yourself Haitian. I don't even know where I'm from. I just figured out at 45 years old that we used to be Moors and kings and queens, and started reading up on that heritage, because guess what? Back in the 70s or the 80s, they started saying, okay, now the new term is African American. Okay, so that defines me. That's what I am. When we came here through slave trade, we were ripped of our religion. We were ripped of our language. We couldn't even speak the language to even understand what was going on. We were ripped of our self-worth. So now you got a people that's been oppressed. They have no race pride whatsoever because you're nothing. Now you want to go 400 years later and say, oh, we're something, and then compare it to someone who still have their heritage. That's totally not, for me, that's not. I mean, honestly, even the word Black, that's what defines me. And for me, that, you know, people say what they want, but that the word Black, what it means, if you look in a dictionary, that's what defines who we are. We're Black people. It's more to us than that. We were once kings and queens. We taught people health. We taught people how to clean. We've built pyramids. We've done so much, and half of us don't even know that. I had to get to 45 years old to even know who I am or what I came from, to even get some type of pride about my heritage. My name's Kimyana Jones Bay. For the longest, and I was young before, and I come from corporate America, and for the longest, you know what I did to get jobs? I dumbed myself down. I called myself Kim Young so that you will think that I'm either white or Chinese. So you would give me half a chance. Now I unapologetically use my whole name, Kim Yana. Yes, it's an African name, and I love it. And I don't do that anymore. I go after places like CVS, and I'm like, ooh, should I change my name up? Or, you know, I'm trying to get a contract with this one. No, I don't. My company is in my whole name. And so often we have been beaten down so much in America that we try to cover the good that we do offer. This lady sat up here and said that she's an attorney. And then I start to look at our just on this panel, the wealth of knowledge, and we start looking at our people instead of being like, oh, we have so much power and so much like education that we already exist within ourselves just on this panel. Look at all of these beautiful melanin here. Look at what you guys bring to the table. But then we're always trying to go and want to be included in their table. We need to get away from trying to be equal and just having our own table. You know, I don't want to sit at your table no more. I want to have my own table. And then how about you come sit at my table? That's what we have to stop, this whole trying to, you know, I love equality. That's great. But we've been trying too long to sit at people's tables. And that's what differs from the Jewish people. They create their own table. They don't care if you come sit at it or not. They're going to keep their own table. And that's what we need to get back to doing.
I love that. So Olajide, you wanted to say something? Talk to me.
Yes. This is a beautiful conversation. To piggyback on everyone, I honestly have to go back to a original document, 1835, from the British Parliament. And I just really want the listeners, the viewers, I really need you to hear this. This will bring everything that we're saying together. This is from Lord Maculus. This was an address that he did to the British Parliament. I have traveled across the length and breadth of India, and I have not seen one person who is a beggar, who is a thief, such wealth. I have seen in this country such high moral values, people of such caliber, that I do not think we would ever conquer this country unless we break the very backbone of this nation, which is her spiritual and cultural heritage. Therefore, I propose that we replace her old and ancient education system, her culture. For if the Indians think that all of that is foreign and English is good and greater than their own, they will lose their self-esteem, their native culture, and they will become what we want them, a truly dominated nation. This is exactly what was done to the slaves when they brought us over here. So this goes back to then. Now, what are we going to do about it now? Something that I do is, it's really one person at a time. As you elevate yourself and raise your vibration through education, through knowledge, and through community, as you advance, you bring someone with you and you do the same for them. You give them opportunities, right? We have to do that one community at a time, because like one of the other panelists said, we come from all over. So there's a lot of different heritage based on where you come from in Africa. For me, I was, like I was saying earlier, I was raised in a traditional Yoruba culture. So we have our own language. We wear African clothes. We eat African food. We have markets at a young age. We're taught you have to have your own market. You have to have your own commerce. We have how we worship, and we have our community where we collectively support one another. And this is what has to be done with all of us. So that will take time. And that will take us, reaching back and lifting all of us one at a time.
See, so that's a very powerful statement, and it's a great way to piggyback and lead into the very next question, which is going to be, how do we as a culture make better decisions with the resources that we have, and how do we become good stewards of the resources that we've been given? So I feel like you touched on that. I want to get Michelle's input on this particular question.
Can you repeat that again? Sorry, it was the resources being a good steward.
Correct. What can we do as a culture to be better stewards of the resources we've been given?
I think a lot of it is going to be educating ourselves and not taking advantage of each other when there are opportunities to buy the block. Ensure the person that is leading the buy the block movement is actually credible, and then ensure that everybody keeps each other accountable and we move forward. I think there are a lot of us who want to do better with what we have, but we also don't know where to go to get the information and the education, or there are nefarious folks out there who are taking advantage of that, right? So I think we need to hold each other accountable. When we see something wrong, say something, protect each other, and ensure that if we have the knowledge, we share the knowledge, because knowledge to me is the biggest resource that we have. But until it's applied, it doesn't matter, right? It's pearls before swine. So, to me, it's really about checking folks when they try to take advantage of people we care about and people in our community, and then ensuring that people who want to do better have the opportunity to do better.
WJ,
Yeah, just
man.
to I
I was
just
coming
wanted
to you because I know you're a mindset guy, and I really wanted to touch on what your insight.
Well, I just wanted to piggyback on what she was speaking about, is because you can't hold someone accountable for something they don't know. So for the exposure part, that is definitely key, because sometimes people want to do better, but they just don't know how to do better. And they could have the right tools. Because I said on a post the other day, I can have a hammer and you can have a hammer, but you can't do what I do with a hammer. Like, it's just a hammer to you, and you can actually do damage with a hammer, but I can build with a hammer. So me being able to expose you to the opportunities and being able to learn how to use the tools is going to be key. And just perspective, like, it has to be shaken, so we can realize what we actually have. We have the same tools that the quote unquote white community has. I understand the opportunities are presented differently and systematically. We are limited, but we can push past that. We really can.
Curtis, you're off mute. I want to get your insight.
Yes, indeed. So first and foremost, I think that it's imperative that collectively we come to an understanding about what it is that we actually want, because it just reminds me of, like, my brother. He's always talking about the way that he gives gifts is he gives from what he thinks you should have. And it's like, if we acquire assets and we go to help one another, but we're not giving them what they need, is that really help? So we need to understand collectively, what do we want? Do we want to establish ourselves as a powerhouse culture within America? Do we want to take our resources and maybe, see what's going on in Africa? My barber's out there in Ghana right now, and he's learning so much about what's like the country and how wealthy they are, the things that they don't show on television. And it's like, is this what we want? So to understand, like, okay, if we found a pathway to accumulate wealth, and our mission now is to pay it forward, to move things in a better direction. It's like, yo, where are we going? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, GPS doesn't just say go left, go right, go left, go right. Like, you tell GPS where you want to go, and then it gives you directions to get there. So when we decide collectively, what do we want? Do we want to establish ourselves in America? Do we want to be in power? Do we want to be left alone? Right. And then these things that we decide collectively that are important to us, any one of us that accumulates wealth and has the heart to pay it forward can take these things and apply them in ways that further build the collective vision.
Dejan, I'd love for you to jump in on this one, man. I know we have these conversations all the time.
Yeah, I think the first thing is we have to get out of the way of our own selves. I think we become our biggest stumbling blocks a lot of the time, and I think that goes right before what Curtis just said as far as figuring out what we want. First of all, we have to figure out who we are. First of all, to know what we want. When it comes down to leveraging the resources out here, and the end game result is what we talk about in business. What is the end game? Like Curtis just said, I believe that the end game is different for a lot of people because we're not a community. We don't come together in unity. That's the whole concept of community, right? We don't come together in agreement. We're still stagnated and separated. We have emotional ties together. When it's something like that, form of activism or injustice, emotionally we're unified. But the end game, as far as growth and legacy, it differs for everybody's education. I think Michelle or somebody said it earlier about, some people don't want to do it communally, they're selfishly, right? It's a selfish mentality and way of thinking, and able to do it. But for us, the resources, it's there. Like right now we're using laptops and phones. But the problem is we're using those things to search things that are not profitable or beneficial to us. It's not like back in the days, in the archaic days, where you had to get on a bus, go to the library, pick up an encyclopedia, try to retain as much stuff as you can, get back on that bus, go back home, and tomorrow maybe you might want to recite it. Now it's as simple as, hey Google, hey Siri. We have all of the mechanics to provide us the education, but the problem is we're not seeking it, or we don't know how to research gather properly. We don't know how to do the search to get the results that we want, right? If that was the case, everybody knew it, then there would be no need for a business consultant, like somebody like me, right? To go get you to research the questions that you're going to ask me, right? People wouldn't pay for these things. But I believe that we don't, as a community, we emotionally feel that we need something more, but we have yet to define that. And until we define that, then we can't take the step to go forward until we collectively say, okay, we agree on this. And when we agree on that, and when we agree on that, then I believe we can take the next step forward to figure out, okay, these are the steps that we take. And then again, back to the credibility Michelle talked about, allowing somebody to be a leader without bringing them down.
True.
Like, let somebody actually, and I think that's hard for a lot of us in our community, is it's okay to have somebody lead us as long as we know that they're doing it for the good reasons and not to hurt us. But everybody, we have a lot of, how we used to say back in the days, a lot of chiefs, no Indians. Everybody's, especially in today's society, the more resources we have, the more chiefs we have, and the less Indians we have. That's in business, that's in relationship, that's in everything, right? So because we have this mindset now, then who's the worker? Who's the follower? Everything has to have a structure. But if everybody's a chief, then where's the structure going to come from?
So Kimyana, I really want to get you to hop in on this, but Michelle wanted to post the question. So is it all right if I get Kimyana's response first, and then we'll go ahead and open up for your question?
I feel like we need to stop counting us out. We need to tap into our own talent. I went on this journey about a year ago where I said, and I did it before, but just more intentional, where I said, everybody that I know, I don't care, because we're so quick to define people by their present situation. I went on this journey to actually speak to people to see what they know, to see what they're about. And I don't care if you're dressed like a homeless person or you are a homeless person, because everybody can bring something to the table. And in my journey of doing that, I have met my whole mindset. You understand what I'm saying? About our people have changed. I have met so many talented melanin folks that's hidden. Their talent is hidden. You don't even know that they do certain things. You don't even know what they're about. I mean, I'm a loudmouth, so you're going to know, hey, this is what I got going on, But our people, here's the other thing. Our people are so humble because they, a lot of this that they sit out there and they make us like we're these bad people and, everybody's incarcerated. And if we were that type of people, I start to think, like, literally, if we were that type of people, then we would have been taken over this country. Because there's no way. We are humble. That's why we ain't sitting in their jail cells, because we humble. So everything that is reflected on us is actually a reflection of the people that are reflecting that type of reflection on us. So my thing is, I always say tap into our talent, and we got to be a little bit more patient with each other. We're so quick to write each other off, so quick. But, you know, before segregation, I always tell people, and people think I'm crazy when I say this, I love equality, and I love what, you know, Martin Luther King did for us and all of that. But honestly, when we were in segregation, we were forced to deal with each other because we couldn't deal with the other folks. So we had to shop at our own stores. We kept more in our community. And I think when we were desegregated, it actually dismantled our community. And that's when we were allowed to be capitalized on. So now we got to have Gucci and Prada and be flashy and all this stuff because we were capitalized on. Before, we were humble, before segregation. We had to shop at our community stores. So I think we need to stop counting ourselves out and start tapping into our own talent and giving ourselves a little bit more credit.
That's a powerful statement. Michelle.
Yeah, Kamiana actually teed it up perfectly, because the question I have for us all the time is, how many of us do we need? Because we always talk about, well, the community's not doing anything. The communities, there's 9 of us, Ebony, Jason, like, what can we do? The 11 of us could probably rock so much, right? And get so much done. And it feels like so often we just don't come together, even if it's 2, right? 2 touch and agree. If there's 2 of us, what can we do? What can we bring about? And I think that's one of the places where we seem to falter, is that we're always looking for more people. We're always looking for a quorum, or to broaden the net, or everybody's not in the boat yet, right? And if we could just start with who's on board and move forward from there, I think we could just do incredible things. Like, I'm so honored to be here with all of you, because I know that we all are heart-centered and want to make a change and a difference. And we can do that, each of us.
So that's a great way for, yeah. That's amazing, right? Because the way that you said that, it teased up my next question. Glenn, did you want to hop in real quick?
Yeah, there's a question that came in. Well, actually 2 questions came in, but I only asked one for now. And the question came in from the audience, says, how do we measure successful generational wealth as a culture?
That was going to be the question I was going to ask.
Anyone can answer that question.
That's a toss-up question.
For me, if we were to have to measure successful generational wealth, we have to look at what already defines generational wealth, right? Or what defines wealth today. It's going to be real estate ownership, stocks, deeds, business ownership. It's not necessarily what you have in your bank account. Is those assets that you have, that whether you're here or there, they're going to continue to grow, and then the next generation can benefit from it. So when we look at, we say in our community, because we live there, in the Black community, say my community, because we live there, right? How many of those schools do we own? How many of those hospitals do we own? How many anything on that block do we own? Is our face represented on that block as far as part of ownership? For me, if we're going to measure our generational wealth by anything, the standard is there. It's going to come through. What can we own that somebody else can't just take away from us? What do we have? And I think the young lady was speaking it earlier, before segregation really took full-fledged in the 30s and 40s, 60% of Black households was home ownership. Home ownership. Now we're less than 10%. We're less than 10%. We went from 60 when we had the least amount of opportunities, but because they would not deal with us, we did more. But now that we're integrated, we do less. So for me, it would really be about ownership, because ownership will really define how much equity you have, and equity is going to define how much financial liberty you have to do more, because the more land you have, the more real estate you have, the more opportunity you have to be able to do more for people. Because if we own a mass amount of land, then you can build the schools, and you can build the hospitals, and you can build the other things that we just spoke about, our counterparts, the Jewish community has done. that has created what? Generational wealth. For me, it would come down simply just ownership.
I want to jump in a little bit behind that too, because in addition to ownership, I think access to resources, access to knowledge, because you think about family legacy. You think about, especially when you look at last names like the Kennedys, the Rockefellers, right? Like, these are people who not only pass down assets, but they pass down access, right? Like, people could, because your last name it holds that much weight, because you've accumulated so much clout within a particular community or a segment. Like, that is something intangible that I believe is a part of generational wealth. Because yes, we can pass down ownership to a property, but what about ownership to a property as well as being a prominent figure or a descendant of a prominent figure in the community, somebody who has made a huge difference, who has done something. So I think that's the other pillar of it, is that number one, being able to pass down something tangible so that your next of kin and beyond that does not want or need for anything, but also being able to pass down something intangible, knowledge, history, legacy, things that just compound, so that my last name is Washington, and when my son walks into this world, that last name means something, and when people see him, they know that he's a part of that legacy, and that's wealth to me, and that there's no dollar sign you can put on that.
It's a powerful statement.
Can I jump in and pose a question? I want to speak on what appears to be the systematic challenges that we have as a community, because I know we're speaking about passing down, but of course we would have to already have it. And if we don't have it right now, how can we get it? So, just recently I've been speaking to the CRA, which is the Community Redevelopment Agency in Fort Lauderdale. And when I spoke to the guy who's running it, first of all, I had a hard time getting in the door. Second, the ramifications or the requirements, we can't meet it. I'm talking about financial. Some of them, they had a minimum of 5 million. You have to have 5 million to start. Like, it's like gridlocked. And first of all, it's named the Community Redevelopment Agency, and it's for 6 Trunk Boulevard. So who are we redeveloping the community for if you're asking for us to come with $5 million? Are
they asking 5 million liquid or in assets?
Well, yeah, no, that's a minimum project budget on 2 of the potential programs. They have 3 other ones, but I'm looking at the fact that those are the options. And if you have the 5 million, then you'll get 5 years of tax-free, So but what I'm saying is they're making it easy for others to come in and obtain. But I'm trying to understand where are our opportunities to come in and obtain, especially if you're trying to redevelop the community, and then who are you redeveloping it for? So basically what I'm saying is, how are we going to obtain against systematic? Because I know this hasn't come up yet, the systematic challenges.
Well, sorry about that. Kemiana actually did a talk about buying back the block, and she mentioned some techniques that may be able to piggyback. Is that true, Kemiana, that what you're talking about could jump in here?
Absolutely. So one of the things that we have to start doing as our people, and I love, actually it's called buying back the block, and that's what you can do, is start getting into the smaller investments, and then we go big, but we have to start crowdfunding ourselves. So that is one way, and then buying with the purpose. So the purpose of buying back the block is they help curb gentrification. And that's the way we're going to keep our communities level. Because a lot of the lower income communities, I mean, let's face it, we live there. So we got to try to keep our taxes from going up, and let's try to curtail what we have. So instead of getting, and not knocking anything you're saying, brother, yeah, let's get to those $5 million programs, but let's start with the $500,000 ones, because there's a lot of those. You could buy 10 houses for less than $1 million and keep that neighborhood together. And that's what I mean when I say we got to stop trying to sit at their table. We're going to get there. but my table might be right here, but if I keep 20 families, whereas your $5 million project might be a host of 50 or 100 families. But if I could keep 20 minority families, melanin families in their homes, that is the start to the generational wealth, because now that community stays there. I'm from a small community called St. Joseph. And I love it because we've kept that community just as we are. Minorities, everybody who came in there with houses, family names. I can still go down Gunpoint Lane and I'll know those same families live there and their children take the houses. So we got to figure out how we keep those old communities, together first instead of all this new age stuff. Because if we don't, they come in and snipe out all of us. Yeah, so that was one thing that I had. And then also teaching people what you know. I have been on this thing that, I don't know, something in us, I guess we've been so oppressed that we feel like when we have a little piece of gold, we got to keep it here. So if somebody takes that piece of gold and run with it and create something bigger, we're like, oh, we don't want that to happen, but why? I'm going to let you in on something. I know Ola because I started my own hair company. Now, Ola came on here and what did she say? I'm Hair Goddess Boutique, right? We exist in the same state, in the same city, and we both winning and eating. But I did show her, and then she showed me some things too. She took what I did and did a whole nother spin on it. So I've learned from her and she's learned from me, but I've learned from this girl. Now, what if I had said, oh, no, she's just the manager. Let's not let her have her business. Let's suppress that. What if I said that? It's too many people that we would do that. When we want to go from manager to business owner, we don't want that to happen. We have to start including our people and teaching them. And it's okay if they leave the right way. That's what I do now in my suites. I have people that came in and now he's a millionaire and was making triple what I even, gross at my suite. He outgrew me and I'm okay with that because he left the right way. And I showed him and now he's outgrown me. And we have to, as a people, be okay with that. And that when you talked about legacy and I forget what the question was. What was that question again about keeping legacy or keeping our culture? What was the last question?
How do we? That was Glenn, I think. But hold up. I know it.
The measurement.
How do you measure? There we go.
That's how we measure. Because here's the thing: we don't measure just with us. If I can help Miss Michelle and uplift Miss Michelle, and Miss Michelle take that ball and go roll with it and become as big as Microsoft. When Microsoft created, didn't they do all of that? All 3 or 4 or 5 of them was in a garage, and one of them took the ball and exploded. He took care of his friends, and here we are. But we don't do that. We wouldn't even let them out the garage with the idea. If you could take an idea and explode it, and you become a legacy, and you melanin like me. Let's make that happen. But we got to start doing that as a people. Teaching what we know for free. Because then we want to charge every 5. I'm not saying don't make a living. I'm not saying that. But some things we got to let go. We can't be worried about if people going to take our idea.
I got to disagree with the for free part. Only
Me too.
Because,
thank you, Curtis.
Yeah, only because this is how we also stimulate our community economically. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is how we pass our dollar within our community. Is if I had know something that you don't know, I would be perfectly obliged to tell you. And if it's something that you find valuable, why is it a problem to make that investment? Now, if I'm trying to tax you or hit you over the head, that's one thing. But you should be happy that you have the resources to invest and to pour into me. And it's an exchange. I'm giving you that information. I'm giving you that value that then, let's say I charge you $100 for an hour of my time, and that hour of my time then grossed you $1,000 because you took that information and ran. So that $100 becomes trivial, right? But I believe that we have to get of the mindset, because this is, and just as a side note, like when I used to do the rap thing back in the day, like the music, everybody wanted a free verse from everybody. And it's like, none of y'all are making no money. So the thing is like, okay, why don't I pay you $25 to come get on this verse. Now you just made $25, right? And now I value what you do. I taking it more seriously. And then it brings more value to the project that I had. And then when I come back to you, I'm gonna charge you $25. Now it's got an exchange. The bigger artists do that just with other people's money. They take their advance and go, hey, Nelly want to get Ludacris on this song. All right, well, Ludacris charge $100K. Okay, record label, go ahead and pay him $100K. You know what I'm saying? So they're getting paid that way. But I just think like if we get in this mentality of, Daniel, I want to pick your brain. Oh, pick my brain. Okay, why don't you go ahead and here's my link. Go ahead and sign up for a consultation. And now, it's $50 for 30 minutes of your time. Gladly. Now, pour into me, Daniel.
Yeah, I agree with Curtis on this one, only simply because we undervalue free. And we undervalue the work that we put in. I've seen people that don't have $2 to put together, but they figure out how to get $10,000 to go see Grant Cardone. They'll figure out how to put 10 grand to go see somebody. And there's somebody like Curtis or Daniel or Glenn in their neighborhood with the same education, with the same opportunity, with the same platform, with the same resources. But because they know them, they want to just have a conversation with them for free. They just want to keep calling them every day and say, hey, what do you think about this? Say, what do you think about this? Say, what do you think about this? But Grant Cardone said, I'm going to be in your town one day only, but this weekend only. I'm only going to be here one day only. He'll be back next month, but this time it's going to be one day only. 10 grand. We'll find a way to go have somebody sell us a dream that somebody has already given us the provision for $50, $10, $100. We don't value the knowledge that's in our community. That's the number one part. You said we want to go back to that collective unit. You said we're queens with kings. We taught people architecture, reading, writing, hieroglyphics. We taught all of these things. So why can't we believe in the community right now that looks like us, that we have the resources and the education right now and invest in them? And like Curtis says, if I'm charging you $150 an hour for my consultation, you better believe that I promise a guaranteed return on my investment. You're going to get, when you actually apply what I give you, $10,000, $20,000 back in return. But I'm not bucking. I'm at $150 an hour because my time is valuable, because I could use that time to invest in me as well to make me 20, 30 grand.
And
I just want to be clear on when I said for free, I'm not talking about what you guys do. I'm talking about things that are just little nuggets. You know what I mean? Like I don't mean whatever it is that we can possibly make money. I agree with the panel 100,000%. But I'll be frank with you. I told when gold had dropped, I just posted, hey guys, goal is this, goal is that. Now you go do research and you could go hire you a stockbroker. And if that one of them is you and melanin, great, you get paid for that. But little nuggets as we learn things, I'm talking about just dropping hints and helping and turn people on to things. My cousin is now doing salon suites. Did I go and invest in her? And no, I just told her, hey, Atlanta's a good market for it. Why don't you try that? Now she took the ball and went do it. We're creating legacy. She did it under her own brand and I have mine. But, so I'm not saying don't get paid for what you're doing, but at least we hoard a lot of information too. Even now, I love this panel because we're giving out information for free, really.
Yeah,
so nobody's paid to be here.
I just want to say something quick. I think there has to be the differentiation. Information, I think we should share information freely. But if you want me to give you the sauce, and sit down and it takes my time.
Yeah. Thank you, Daniel.
For my time, right? I can show you where the link is. I can show you where to go get the information the same way I went to go get the information. But now if I'm sitting down to walk you through it, then I charge for the time.
Thank you. That's what I was saying. So I want to be clear. Thank you, Daniel. You cleared that up. Thank you.
Ola, I know you want to get in here. Sorry. I just wanted to make that differentiation.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I love this topic because what I have done with my platform, being an entrepreneur of 12 years, I started entrepreneurship at 18, and by 21, right, I actually had my own company. Now, what I did is I use giving back, contributing to my community and my marketing strategy. So what I do is I offer seminars, I offer webinars, I offer events, networking events, where I bring millions. These are people that you would never meet, you would never gain access to. I put them on my platform and acknowledge them. I invite the community, right? I invite the community, and people are able to, number one, get motivated, They're able to receive education and access to people's programs, right? To people's products, just giving people really an inspiration. Because what I have noticed, all my students are icons. Wealth Icon University, you are an icon. And the number one thing is confidence, clarity, confidence, and commitment to building a profitable business and creating a legacy, right? This is what I do with my students. And what I've noticed is if you don't know what you don't know, you don't know what you don't know. And until you have access and an invitation into a higher room, you will always remain right here. And that's just what it is. If you don't have someone who invites you into that next door, what are you going to do? So what I would suggest for everyone, one, how can we, just us right here, we can put on events where you're able to make money off vendorship. You're able to make money off people coming and attending, and you're able to give back and inspire others. So that's what I created for the community within my marketing strategy.
I love that. So, moving on to the next question, right? Because that's powerful. Would you say that we have not been taught how to be financially responsible, not know how to invest property and letting money work for you? Um, what are some of the ways we can change that?
Definitely mindset. Like I said in the beginning, we have not been taught what I have saw. Even growing up in my family, my grandfather had bonds. He had owned streets. He owned over 5 different properties, also land lots, right? We had generational wealth. We had insurance policy. There was money there. However, it was sold, right? It was sold. So, and that's just in my personal family. So the generational wealth was there, but if it's not reciprocated, like if that knowledge of the purpose and just the disconnect, I just know that there's a disconnect, and I don't know if I really know that answer, because for me, coming through the generation, right, the third level of that generation, I saw that as a child at 12 years old. And so I knew, okay, I need to invest. I need to have my own business. I need to make money for my family so this doesn't happen again. And that's my personal testimony. I honestly would like to hear the other panelists on this one.
If I may jump in.
WJ, you've got.
Oh,
Oh,
go
sure,
ahead.
sure, sure, Curtis.
Yo,
No, go ahead, go
yeah,
ahead. You're.
so yeah, I was just thinking about the question, and uh, I love that she said that her family had the generational wealth, and someone messed up the bag, and it's like you got to recreate that. But for a lot of us, we have such diverse backgrounds, and like my family, for instance, there's a saying: "You don't know what you don't know." My dad grew up in an era. There's a like 40-year gap between my dad and I, so there's like generations, like decades between. And he grew up in an era where all you really were striving for was like a good job and a retirement, and that was pretty much it. And to have that is like the biggest privilege I don't want anymore. And so for us coming up, at 18, when I left the house, I'm out there pretty much naked, like what's going on. So I think what we can do to really make sure that everybody is access to the information, like Kim mentioned before, and there is a distinction between charging for my time versus giving information. Like if you know something that can benefit people, it's not going to take money out of your pocket to give general information. And so with that being said, there's foundational pillars of things you can know. Like I was at a networking event one day, and the guy was a life insurance agent, and he was saying that he got his daughter, who was 4 years old at the time, a life insurance policy, and he explained to me that when she's 18, she can borrow against the cash value, never have to take out a student loan, and this is tax-free money. So she's set at that age, and it's like boom, okay, this is a pillar that, my son is born, and I just reached out to my insurance agents, like, okay, let's get this policy set up so that this child has, these things. And you think about, for a life insurance policy for a child is like 30, 50, 70 bucks a month. For that small contribution, you're setting your child up with an asset that they can have into the future. Again, you've got property. I had a client before who was like, my dad gave me a condo when I turned 18. Like, what? Here I am at 18, like, I don't even get that card. And you know what I'm saying? Like, they gave a condo, and it was just like a common sense thing. So if we as a collective start to determine these are the non-negotiables that come with family, like, your family is going to own a business, regardless of what that business is. We're all going to contribute. Yeah, you can go have a job. And if you want to be a doctor, we're going to have the resources to pay for you to go to school so you can go do that. But these are the pillars within everything, so that generational wealth becomes a staple. It becomes a staple in each and every family. And I would argue to say, like, we go even beyond just our culture, just everybody gets that. Because again, I think Michelle said it before, not everybody wants it. So cool. If it's available for everybody, that's perfect. That's great. That's what we want. But there's going to be some people that'll go, yo, like, I like living under the bridge and drinking my wine, and I'm cool with that. It's like, cool, fine. But you can't say, because like I said, you don't know what you don't know, and you're not responsible for your lack of your ignorance. But once you do know, if you don't apply that, then you're 100% responsible. That's on you.
You just open up a whole can of worms. Just the next question. But I hear DeJohn. Go ahead, DeJohn. Who's gonna talk? Go ahead.
WJ, I thought.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Can you rephrase the last? Just state the last part of that question one more time. I just want to make sure I hit it.
Sure. The very last part of the question was just saying, what is it that we can do to better implement the knowledge from generation? So transfer the knowledge from generation to generation.
I think we got to be frank. Don't cut any corners. One thing that I speak to my kids, and that my dad taught me, is about interest. Interest is the American way. Capitalism. It's everywhere. It's in the car payments. It's in the phones. It's in the rent-a-center, that's one of the biggest ones. I think I was at the check casher store just getting a money order the other day, and I think I saw 228%. And one of the biggest problems is that we are willingly signing over and falling prey to these traps. And how will we ever overcome some of these things when we continue to do it? I've heard of people that get a new house and go to Rent-A-Center, and then they go get a new house the next February around tax time and go back to Rent-A-Center to get some new furniture that's going to get repoed in a couple months. And it's just it's a bad cycle, and it has to be exposed. It has to be taught. They have to realize you're paying 3 times for something that's worth pennies, and it's messing with your generational performance. 10 years later, you spent 30,000 on furniture. You spent millions. And it's just we have to teach it like it's the last thing we're gonna do, because that's the key, is how are you managing what you have. It's not, to me, I always tell my clients, it's not how much you make, it's what you're doing with how much you make.
Powerful statement.
So Daniel, we can probably go into the last discussions question, and then one last question for all the team to answer. So the next question would have been actually Curtis opened it up with student loan debt. So the topic says student loan debt. Are we truly getting the tools we need from the education system? When we get a $200,000 student loan debt, but we can't even find a paying job that's even worth $60,000 and above. So then should it be that we no matter the color of skin, no matter who we are, black, white, Asian, we all have student loan debt. I have friends who are in college who have the same issue. But then the question comes back, what is if we took that $50,000 every single year and invest into entrepreneurship So instead of paying $20,000 for an education that you may not get the ROI on, why not take $50,000 every single year for the next 4 years and build a successful, thriving business? What is your thought? I know most of you guys are entrepreneurs. Go ahead, Curtis, jump on in.
Yo, so I've seen both sides of that. Like, and I say the very first thing that needs to be implemented, and I say this not being in the shoes of a high school student going into college. I don't know what they're experiencing right now, but I know in my case, they were quick to throw them loans at me, boy. Like, let me tell you something. They said, "Oh, you want to go to college? Sign this, sign this. This is how much you can get. You want to max it out? Go ahead, go for it." Because like my man said before, interest. They're going to tax you. They're going to get you. And the student loans don't disappear. So here's what I say is when it comes to student loans, when it comes to college in general, because if you'd asked me a year ago, I'd have been like, entrepreneurship, let's go. But that's not for everybody. But when we have the context of this conversation, I think entrepreneurship should be one of the pillars of legacy when you pass that through, because the option should always be there. If you don't want to go to college, you could still work and eventually take over the family business or businesses. And there's a viable option for you to have income coming in. You're not going to sit on the couch and play video games, and they're not going to run the streets. Like, you've got things set up for you when you get out of that. But if college is something you want to do, I recommend that we put that seed in the high school, even middle school students' heads of like, know what you want to do before you take out student loans and do that. And I say this from the student loan perspective, because you can, if you've got access to capital that will allow you to go into, take college classes, and you want to find yourself, and that find yourself comes with a $50,000 receipt, by all means, if you're not taking out, debt. But if you are dead set on, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, well, that's the path to that, is that education. Entrepreneurship, yes, is a beautiful thing. And when you hit it right, it's fine. But without some of the things that they teach you, like some of the business, like fundamentals that, you can get like a straight path to in college, you're going to hit a lot of trial and error. And you may end up unassing $50,000 just trying to figure it out. So I think there's a balance that you have to take. And I think there's a value in college that's always overlooked. And those are the relationships that you create in college. When you get in that, Facebook, this whole platform that we all pretty much met on was created by a bunch of dudes in college. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, you connect. If you join a fraternity or sorority, those are your brothers and sisters for life. Those are people who got your back when you don't have a dollar in your pocket. So those are things that we kind of dismiss about college. And this is coming from somebody who hates college. Like, I got so many stories about that, because, I went to all the way up to almost getting my bachelor's. And the only thing that I have to show for it is this thing on my credit. It's like, you owe this money in these student loans. So I put all that out there to say that, there needs to be even a class that sits down with high school students that says, okay, this is important that you need to understand. Yeah, it looks cool, but you're also going to need to understand that there's a responsibility that comes with that. And at 18 years old, you could be making a choice right now that's going to affect you into your 20s and 30s and 40s. And just know that it could affect you in a positive way, and it could affect you in a negative way. Understand those and make an informed decision. And empowering a youth with that kind of decision making is actually powerful, because it's like, you just stepped into adulthood. That's your first adult decision. And like I said, I work in Boca, where you got people who, like one of the guys at the front desk at the gym, he's like, yeah, I think I'm going to try law school. My parents are paying for it. I'm like, oh, word? That's nice. That's a thing. You know what I'm saying? But that's a different story than saying, I'm going to try law school. I'm going to take out $100,000 in debt to see if this thing works. I'm gonna flip a coin, and maybe if I get disinterested, So, and that's again, going back to it, and I'll wrap this up real quick. That's the thing about the generational wealth that's so beautiful, is that I just made fun of that kid for having his parents being able to do that, but I want to be able to do that for my son. I want to be able to say, what do you want to do? And it's nothing. It's a drop in the bucket here. go here, $100,000, like here, go put on my tab. You know what I'm saying? Like that. So that's how I feel about college.
Can I hit this from a different angle possible?
Go ahead.
All right. So for me, I was blessed enough. I went to school. I didn't pay a dime for all my education. I have 3 degrees. I didn't pay a penny. 3 degrees, not a penny.
Yeah.
Right. When I remember my 9th grade year, my dad, he came from Haiti. He was a big time painter, big time artist. He sold to 13 different boutiques. Then we came here on a boat, and he's a peasant. He's sweeping up floors. Okay. That's what my dad did. He was a janitor. My 9th grade year, my dad looked at me and he had a stern conversation with me. He's like, you see all your friends? Their parents probably can pay for them to go to college. I can't. He had a real life man-to-man conversation with me at 14 years old. He's like, if you want to go to college, you have to make it happen on your own. From 9th grade to 12th grade year, I kept a 4.0 GPA and higher. He made me make a decision for my future early. I was not like every other kid where I knew I had it made and blah, blah, blah. And the very next year, when I turned 15, my sophomore year, my dad was so financially unable to take care of me, I started living on my own and I became homeless. But because of that conversation that he had with me, it prepared me mentally for everything that was going to come my way. I was an honor roll student. I was an AP student. While everybody's worrying about being a kid, I was worried about I'm going to college and I'm not going to pay for it. So by the time I was a senior in high school, I had 3 scholarships knocking on my door: athletic scholarship, art scholarship, and academic scholarship, because I made sure if one didn't work, I had another one. I kept the 4.0 GPA and higher. I was a real good artist, so I tried that. I was a real good ball player, so I tried that too. So if somebody's going to have to fall through, but I'm going to try everything. I think we set our kids up for failure by not putting the expectations on them early, because we bless them too much, because we didn't have nothing. We ain't had nothing. So when we have them now, oh boy, you know, that boy right there, that's a setup for failure. Sometimes it's good, but just like we say, we could take over daddy's business, but if he don't know how to run it, he don't have to drive for it, that business is going to run through the ground too. Daddy's business is going to run to the ground. So for me, I went to school and I never paid a dime. I don't even know what a college debt student look like. I don't even know what that look like. They pay for my books, they pay for my school, they pay for my meals, they pay for everything. Why? Because somebody had a conversation with me that told me, if you want it, you got to make it happen. You got to go get it. Now, I know in today's society, although we have more money in the lotto than ever before in Powerball, that's supposed to be sponsoring and funding higher education, supposedly, but we're giving out less scholarships. It's only 75%, no more 100% scholarships, but that's still available. I really think it starts at the home with the expectations that we put on our kids. The kids don't have to pay for student loans. They don't have to get student loans. They don't have to pay. And like you said, education for me, if I have to speak as frank as I can, it's not for everybody. You can be half of the billionaires and millionaires we're talking about today never have a college education. Half of them dropped out of college, right? So, but for some people, like you said, they want to be that engineer. They want to be that lawyer. They want to be that doctor. That is their path. But before they even get to that path, they have to make a decision that, you know what? I can't expect somebody else to build my future for me. I have to build it for myself. And that starts with knowing that it's going to cost this much. What do I need to do today to reduce that cost?
I just want to chime in on that, because when I'm hearing you speak, it almost seems like a dichotomy in the mindset of, you know, empowering somebody to make it on their own, or at least to go through it, and to have that there for them with generational wealth. Because the conversation that we're having is about generational wealth and having the resources and the access to the financial the financial resources to do things like that. So it's kind of like, yes, I firmly believe that real life conversation needs to be had. But on the flip side of that, I don't believe that he should have to do it on his own. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because that's what we are building that moving forward. I get it,
but understand this. My dad didn't have generational. He had a broom.
Sure. But what are you working for?
He told me what he didn't have, right?
Sure.
But let me show you this. One thing that Corona taught me about generational wealth is here today and gone tomorrow. How many build up mom and dad pop stores that was building up for the past 30, 40, 50, 60, maybe even 100 years? Generation past generation, brick and mortar, they build it from their back. Now because of what? We cannot foresee what the future is going to hold, but we were depending on this finance for the next. They're no longer here. there are things that we cannot always put all full dependability on. Now, is it good to have? We know it's good to have. That's what we're doing right now. We're trying to do it for the next generation. But to understand that it may not be here tomorrow. So if you don't have a mindset that you have to, if they can create their own path, great. If you have the resources to provide them to help onto their own path, great. But they have to have that mindset. Like you was on the street at 18. You wouldn't be sitting here with me today if you didn't have that mindset. I gotta make something happen out of nothing.
And to be honest, there, I value the lessons that I learned, but I would not put that on my child. And that's what the question I posed to you is that,
nobody's
your
telling you
dad.
to do so though.
No, I'm saying, but like,
I will say what I'm hearing between the two of you is the goal is to have the ability to provide that for ours, but to also give them that mindset and that grit to be able to get it from the mud if something goes wrong.
Perfect.
Correct.
Eloquently stated.
That's how it means.
Perfectly said.
Bridging the
I
gap
feel like
right there.
that's that bridge right there.
That's the bridge right there.
Perfectly said.
I do want to get to this last question that Glenn put in the in the chat, because I think this one really encapsulates and tries to leave all of us with something actionable. So, what is one thing that you want your descendants to remember from you? How do you want to be remembered? What is that oily fingerprint that you want left behind after you are gone? And one thing that you're going to do going forward to make sure that happens. Michelle, because we didn't get a chance to touch on you and your $200,000 worth of student debt, I want to start with you on this one.
Yeah, I have $200,000 of student debt, but my children do not. So I totally agree. And they went to college. My daughter's paying for her master's, though. Be clear, that's on her, right? I told them I'll get them to college. So just on that, I totally agree.
Amen.
And my youngest turns 30 in 2 weeks. So I feel blessed to say I think I've already done it, to be quite frank. They're both in happy relationships, loving relationships. They are good people. They know that people matter, and they know that there's an importance to giving back. And they also are proud Black kids, Afro-Latino, but they Black. So, I think if I've done nothing else, my son calls me to debate whatever he's seen passing on the feed, the Ice Cube and Contract with America. That's a blessing to me for my kids to call me and say, Mom, did you see? What do you think? To be able to critically think and evaluate. We don't have to agree, but at least be thoughtful. And if I can leave that oily fingerprint, which I do believe I have at 30 and 31, I'm good. I'm good. Now I just want to make more money, get rid of my 200K, and leave them something that builds on the back of this from the mud.
Awesome.
Next up,
Curtis. I call you up.
Man. Yes.
Why I did that? Because you just had a baby, so I want to know what you gotta say.
Yo, so bigger picture, my oily fingerprint, what I want to leave behind is really, I just want my presence on this planet to positively affect the trajectory of people's lives that I come in contact with. I have a vision of reaching millions of people from my platform with a message that is very simple, that if you can see it, you can create it. In the mind with your hands, Vision and Grind, that's the company and that's the philosophy, and, vision without works is dead. You know what I mean? So that's like what I want people to always get, that if whatever you create, you can create in your mind, you create it with your hands. And I see people already doing that. That's a blessing. Specifically in my household, I really want my son to look up and to see that his father made a difference, that he made a difference in all the lives that he spoke to, and that for my son in particular, he takes that and embodies that himself and goes out to see how many lives he can positively affect. When I was sitting in church one day and they were talking about lighting candles, and they passed everybody a candle, and I was one of the only people that had a lighter. And I lit my candle, and then I passed it on the flame to the next person. And I'm standing here listening to music, and I look behind me, and this entire row is lit up. Their candles are lit up, but the majority of those candles came from that one flame, that one spark. And that's what I want to be in this world. And that's what I want my son to take from me and to move into the world and to make that positive effect as well.
So, wow. Kemiana.
When I leave this world, I said this today when I posted that I want to live in power. And what I mean, because they always put I said while I'm here on earth, I want a LIP. And so when they put the RIP behind my name, I've known I lived in power where I'm in control. And along with that is I want to leave a legacy, but peace. Because even to obtain now, everything seems like a struggle, and it doesn't have to be. So on my family name, I feel like I want to be that one that my grandfather passed the baton, because he had that ownership. He had, where he did business. He was an entrepreneur. And I feel like the baton was passed, but, somebody dropped it along the way. I feel like we all wanted it, but I want to resurrect my family name while I'm here and just make a mark and an impact and just leave peace as far as entrepreneurship is concerned. Because it's okay to leave, Madam C.J. Walker, I watched her story. She left a whole legacy, but the whole time it was just stress, and it was stress, honestly, that killed her. So I want to show my people a way and that they can do this stress-free, so that they can, live on. So that's, and then I want to improve my family name. That's the other thing I want to do. So, and that's more, to me, that's more tangible, leaving the steps and the information for them to be able to recreate what I'm doing is more valuable than actually the money. Because wealth is freedom. And people like to define wealth with money, and it's not. It is time for money. If you could live the life you want to live and not have to be stressed out doing it, to me, that's the greatest wealth of all. And no amount of money can, because now you're adding years to your life. If you got a whole lot of money and you stressed out all the time, then what? So that's the kind of wealth I want to leave: freedom and peace.
Next person gonna be W.J. Diggins.
Okay, so with my kids, I'm tough, and with my coaching clients, I don't tell them that I treat them like my kids, but I treat them the same way, because I believe that when you look at the spoiled child, they're spoiled because they have always been given things and they didn't have to work for anything. So my legacy, I would like to instill that you will have to work for things, and you will appreciate them more, you will value them more. And at the same time, I will be there and I will leave that financial stability, but I'm going to also leave that mental stability. From the last speaker speaking about, being able to just be strong, because it's beyond money to me. Even being able to just think through something, I honestly see that as wealthy, because it takes innovation. So I believe innovation is developed through the struggle. And one last part is resistance training. When you go to the gym, you put more weight so you can develop more muscle. And mentally, I want my kids to just be so mentally stable, and I just consider that wealthy. So that's it.
Ola, you're up next.
Okay. So when it comes to me, I want to be known for helping people shift their mindset when it comes to their business, when it comes to their family, and really guiding people to unleash their inner greatness, healing, breaking generational curses. Because when trauma and a new ideology is put in, you become unstoppable, because you're clear. You can be committed, and you can have the confidence that you need to do whatever it is in business, if it's your family, if it's even your career. It's okay to have a career job and retire as well, you know. So that's what I'm gonna want to be known for, is duplicating myself over 100,000 times and setting off a surge in the universe and impacting the African American community.
Awesome, awesome. Dejan, you're up next.
For me, it's real simple. The very first thing is I just want to teach people to have a heart for people.
Awesome,
I think
awesome.
that's a very, very good start, at least for me, at least, to teach people how to have a heart for people, right? Just have a heart for people. And I think with that type of foundation, you can build anything on. And secondly, for me, I live by this model: be the change you want to see. Lead by example. Like, you can do all this talking, that's cool. I mean, it may sound good. You may have a nice suit, nice car, nice hills. That's good. But if your fingernails aren't dirty, it doesn't really mean anything. So for me, it's having a heart for people, but not just talking about it, but actually being about it, and by leading by example. Because I think one thing that our community could use more of is more examples. You can never have too many of those. Never have too many of that. I think, like Michelle was saying earlier, we have a panel of example right here that can start a movement, right, Michelle? So it's what we're doing right now. We're creating an example for the next generation to leave their own legacy and their own fingerprint.
Awesome, awesome. I'm so proud of what I'm hearing tonight. Now, my last person of all I'm gonna ask is Daniel. Because Daniel, you know I'm gonna ask this question. The reason because of what happened recently and the transition of time for you now. You're now next the legacy carrier, legacy bearer. So what do you want to be remembered for in this question?
Sure. So it's surreal listening to this conversation because I'm facilitating this, but I'm not really participating in it. So for those who don't know, my mom actually passed away a month ago. Um, and so that was, a very difficult time for the family. Um, but when we actually had the service, it was uncanny how many people, like, my mom was a quiet woman. She laughed a lot, and there all of the pictures were of her smiling. And it was uncanny that at the service, everyone who wanted to share something shared about how she made them feel. And it reminded me of that quote, that people may forget what you told them, people may forget what you do for them, but they'll never forget how you make them feel. And so that stuck with me. I had a really good friend of mine who, I've helped at different times in his life, and I actually asked him to be the pallbearer, and he was like, it was amazing to see how much she was loved, right? So when I think about legacy, and then uh, now fast forward a month later, and where I was at the house earlier today before I came on to do this, and we're still finding different accounts that she had, and insurance policies that she had, right? So there were two parts to her legacy. There's the impact that she had on people's lives in the way that she impacted people and touched people and really made them feel as if somebody cared. I had a friend that reached out, like, moms used to feed me when I first moved down there, and I had nobody that I could reach out to, right? Um, so it's that legacy of love. That's the first part. But the second part is a tangible legacy, right? Um, to go through and do the service and all of that, there was no money out of our pockets to do that because the resources have been put in place to do that. And it's crazy that in 2020, Black families still use GoFundMe as the number one way to fund putting somebody in the ground whenever something tragic happens, right? So there's two parts to a legacy. There's the part of what is your impact on people's lives, and for me, I want to be known for empowering people to live their intentionality, right? The power of an intentional mind. Everybody has been talking about mindset and how important that is, but that doesn't happen by accident. That is something that you have to be intentional about, and then walking in your truth. But then the second part is there's a tangible, real world that has to be looked into and has to be planned for. And so, if you can do those two things, and so for me, everything that I do now is to set the table for the next generation. I might not eat from that table, but if I can set the generation that comes behind me with at least a floor, then I've done my part. So that's what I got to say on that.
Awesome, awesome. So Daniel, you can close it up for tonight. We just want to thank every one of you guys for coming out. We know, thank you for your time. I know we went over a scheduled time, but it was so rich that I just was like, okay, let's wind down. But it was thoroughly rich. People were making posts both on Facebook, in the app, and also here on the website. So we're truly grateful for everyone coming out tonight.
Thank you.
And
Pleasure.
tomorrow night begins the official Legacy Conference, where we start off with the Legacy Award ceremony tomorrow, honoring 6 individuals: Chad Van Horn, Melissa Dunn, Lakeisha Gaines, the very one famous. We have a very famous person also in the building. His name is none other than Mr. Freddie Figures. He's also be speaking at the Legacy Conference on Saturday. And also Mrs. Mandy Johnson, and none other than Mr. Gervonta Edmonds of Suits for Seniors. So come on out tomorrow night. Every one of you guys are also welcome. You are already included in the ticketing. Just come on and enjoy the time with us. So thank you all for coming out tonight, and have a wonderful evening. You guys are truly a legacy. You guys are walking legacy. I see one of our guys wearing a shirt, "Legacy lives here." Well, guess what? All you guys, legacy is living within you. Have a wonderful evening.
Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, everyone. Peace and
Good night.
love.
Good night, everyone.